What's going on, everyone? I had an epic fail trying to go live on my cell phone. So, in order not to feel defeated, here I am again. This time I'm doing it on my laptop. And of course, if you remember, I absolutely hate uh, how my camera looks on my laptop, and mainly because I think the lighting is bad, but it doesn't look that great to me. But I'm going to get back to the topic that I was discussing. And the topic that I was going to discuss before I look at some comments from people would be how to cope with the shunning and being disowned by your spouse or your relatives or your friends. So I'm going to take the next 15, 5 to 10 minutes to discuss, and I'll look through the comments. And again, I attempted to do this on my cell phone, but it did not work out too well. So I was thinking about this earlier, and the thought came to my mind regarding how people do not stand up for themselves. Not all people, but a lot of people do not stand up for themselves regarding their spouses, their children, and their JW family and friends. Now, you may be wondering, what do I mean by that? They're indoctrinated. We have to feel sorry for them. You were once one of them, all of the above. So that is true. However, we have to remember that that person is saying, hey, you are an evil individual. You have lost God's favor. And if you don't come to your senses from their perspective, then we're done. I'm leaving you. Now, if you do not stand up for yourself, because there was a guy earlier that sent me an email, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he was referencing how his wife just up and left him. And his son is saying, Dad, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And you're not going to come to my basketball games, my wedding, stuff like that. And that email really upset me, not with the father, but just seeing the evilness that the organization puts people in. Now, here we have an individual that didn't even say anything. He just kind of fell back and decided to fade slowly. But now he's in a position where he's basically being coerced and emotionally abused. And the question is, what do you do? Do you just stand there and take that? Or do you stand up for truth and take the consequences that comes with it? See, this is what we have to remember. There's going to be consequences no matter how one decides to look at it. So there's consequences if you don't go, there's consequences if you go. The issue is, do you want to live your life authentically? And also, are you going to stand up for your truth? And not even your truth, but the truth of what's right. So, and this is why I look at that in a slightly different way, because as an example, let's take the wife or the husband. So they're basically telling you, this is how it's going to be, and I'm leaving. Now, they don't have the truth. They think that they do. They have a version of the truth. So, you, as the person that knows the real facts, they're standing up for what they believe. Why shouldn't you stand up for what you believe? There's consequences going to come no matter what. So, we teach people how to treat us. And I know it's difficult. And I know that people want to keep their families together, and you should. The whole point that you have to ask yourself, even when you think about your kids, because if you have one member that is still going and they're putting pressure on you saying, either you do this or else, and you decide to go along with that, you still are responsible for your kid being raised in that environment because you decide to do nothing. Your kid could wake up one day and say, hey, mom or dad, why didn't you tell me the real truth? Because it will impact their worldview. It will impact how they date. It will impact their medical life, so much other things. So that's a difficult situation. But I say this to you, especially ones that still believe in the Bible. If you truly trust what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 10, he said, if you're not willing to give up mother, sister, brother for me, wife, you're not worthy of me. He didn't say maybe. That's what they're doing because they're thinking they're giving you up for the sake of Jesus, but they're wrong. But here you have an opportunity to actually do it. Jesus also said, if you deny me before men, then I will deny you before God. And also, are you willing to live a fake life? Now, I'm not telling you anything I wouldn't do. I gave up everything, and some things have worked out in my favor, but I was willing to go all out. Not because I didn't care, because I know in my heart I have to be on the front lines. As being a leader, we sometimes have to step out on the front lines and just lead by example, and just trust that people will see the right thing if it's meant for them to see that. And now some people literally can't leave because they may have financial situations, they might have to care for certain people, so they may have to play alone. But I'm saying, if it's impacting your mental health, if it's to the point where you're literally getting sick, just faking, you have to ask yourself, is this true love? From either side. It can be true love once the brain is healed. It can be true love once the heart is healed. It can be true love once we are courageous enough to allow the proper seeds to be planted. What do I mean by that? Very simple. If you're with a woman or a man, let's say the woman is with the man, and she leaves because he loses his money. And then he comes back once he gets money again. That's all the evidence one would need that she's only with you for the money. Now, one can delude themselves and say, this person really loves me. They showed you they were only with you for the money. Now, compare that to the religion. If the minute you just ask a question and your spouse leaves you or whomever, you have to, it's tough, but the reality is that they love you only for what you are doing in the religion. They love you for holding a title. That's not true love. This is a fact. Now, can they grow to love you the right way? Yes, but not in an environment where their mind is injured. So you have to ask yourself, although I'm faking this, I know in my heart I don't believe any of this. I'm going to meeting, I'm pretending, I'm raising my hand, I'm giving talks, I'm playing the elder role just so that somebody can smile at me and give me a pat on the back and say, oh, you're such a spiritual man. Now, in your heart, when you look at yourself in the mirror, when you look at yourself, and when God looks at you, he has to ask you, are you being real and authentic? Because they are, although it's diluted. How does that work in the long run for the rest of your life? Now, that is the question you have to ask yourself. And also, how did you help someone by doing or going along with the very thing that you know is wrong? So at some point, it has to be a strategy where you stand up for the truth. That's what they're doing. So that's what I mean by don't allow people to disrespect your mind. As a man or as a woman, that this is your best friend, your spouse, as an example, it should be at least, if they let you go because you asked a question, this may be a tough pill to swallow. And I'm not speaking fully with objectivity. That person most likely never loved you from the heart. Now, I get that they're trying to say that they love God more and all this, but how could they possibly love God more? And what they're doing is contrary to the Bible. God said, what he has yoked together, let no man pull apart. He talks about a threefold cord. There is no reason, there is zero evidence in the Bible for somebody to divorce you because you ask a question. Now, that's where the person has to look at that and say, well, so I love you enough to tell you the truth, but you don't love me enough because you want me to live a lie. And you're not even willing to hear me out. Not even willing. Is the tough reality that the organization puts people in. That is the tough reality where people's kids, because your kid may be 10 years old and you taught them something and now they think that this is the truth, and now they're thinking that they're helping you. But how do you help the person to not get further into that? That's the question. So do you just fake it? So that's what I want to talk about tonight. And again, I received the email from somebody, and he was saying in that same situation where his wife just up and left him. And that broke my heart. But I want to tell you, when I left the organization, I faced all those realities. But I'm going to always, I kind of go into thug mode. I really mean that. I mean, I'm saying, look, I'm not living no lie. I'm not doing no fake stuff. I'm not letting you punk me. I'm not doing none of that. I'm standing up for the truth, and you're gonna do what you got to do, and I'm gonna do what I got to do, because I know at the end of the day, you can't give me salvation, mom, dad, nobody. Only God can do that for me. And I'm gonna stand up and for the truth of what the Bible says. I'm gonna look myself in the mirror and know I did the right thing, because that's what you think you're doing. And when people do wake up, they will respect you. That's what I can guarantee you. But you have to go through that process. So you have to really believe what you're saying, and just really decide how you want to live your life. No one can tell you what to do. Either live fake or live authentically. The choice is yours, but it will come with consequences. But some consequences are good. So just weigh your situation. Think about what you're in. Think about, I can't go to God 20 years from now, as an example, and live my whole life fake. And the scriptures are telling me what to do. And I said, well, God was scared. I just, there was zero help to the person. So that's what I asked myself. Now, of course, only God can read hearts, but I'm not willing to take that chance. So let's see what some people are saying. Oh, I have my glasses this time. I remember. So I don't think anyone has ever seen me put my glasses on. So it makes a tremendous difference reading these comments. So let's see. My advice is not let their insults discourage you. Coming from Lewis, on the path you're striving to achieve, I know how it can really be trust. So I want to highlight that comment. So I want people to understand I am not one that's insensitive. Most people, like, I can go from 0 to 20. 1 minute I can be crying and soft. Next minute I can be ready to throw hands if need be. 1 minute, it just depends on the situation. But I'm not a violent individual. I don't mess with people. I mind my own business. But when I make a decision to do something, I'm ready to go all in with it. No fear of anything. So we have to recognize that we are made in God's image, and that we are powerful individuals. And that, while there's a quote by Sidney Poitier that I love, he says, when two people, or he said rather, since he's passed away, when two people are walking on the sidewalk, either you adjust to their pace or they adjust to yours. So imagine you're walking on the sidewalk with your JW family member or friend, and they're saying, hey, either you stay in this organization or we're done. So either you're going to adjust to their pace, or you're going to say, you know what? No. The Bible tells me to test all things. The Bible, I follow men and not God. I follow God and not men. So either they're going to adjust to your pace or you adjust to theirs. The issue is when you look yourself in the mirror, you know that you're the one that has the truth because you've done the research. They have not. Darkness rather runs away from light, not the other way around. So why would you adjust to their pace just to appease them? Why would you adjust to their pace just for them to give you this fake sense of love, when you can have the real thing, when you can trust that they could wake up and they will thank you? There's people that have thanked me. It didn't happen right away, but that they were happy that I did what I did, because I knew and trusted that they would see the truth on certain things. And that's why I left in silence, not to go to them because they were going to be indoctrinated with certain things. But again, it's difficult. Sometimes people's age comes into place, where somebody may be in their 60s and they depended upon their husband. It could be a wife, it could be vice versa, where the person is literally in a situation where they don't know how they're going to survive if they leave. And all those situations are difficult. So take your time. And some people cannot leave. I'm just simply saying to you, if you're a Christian and that's what you claim to believe, you have to recognize there's a difference between helping people and hurting people. There's also a difference between letting them condition you versus you letting God condition everything and standing up for truth. So let's look at another comment. I'll put these glasses back on so I can read it. The higher evolutionary. What's up, man? Leaving people behind in the ark is such a conundrum. I want everyone to have the freedom to worship how they want, but the bondage enforced on the members means you are leaving them behind to suffer. Yeah, that's a difficult thing, and I totally agree with that. And it's an unfortunate, and it really is really no one's fault per se, because I was thinking about this earlier. I kind of have these ambivalent feelings sometimes where I go in and out of being indignant. And I say indignant on purpose because it is a righteous anger when I think about my grandmother and all of my aunts that were around the religion when they were in their early 20s and they knew about 1975, and I knew none of that stuff. They knew about the generation that was not supposed to pass away, and my great grandma that was in the 60s. They knew all of this stuff, and here I am, a child, and thinking that they know what they're doing, and they never looked under the hood. And I believe that we have to hold people accountable, because they're holding us accountable, saying we're this or that. And I don't mean throw stone for stone. What I'm simply saying is you can't be the one with the correct understanding and then run away. So I was disappointed in them because they did not look under the hood. They did not do their research. They did not take their responsibility seriously in what you teach children. And that was hurtful and like disappointing. But at the same time, we have to remember that a lot of people, when I think about my grandmother, so she was married before she came into the organization to my grandpa, who's dead now, but he never really treated her right. He constantly would mess over her, but she was looking for something. When I really think about it, almost everybody, I can see their vulnerability when I go back and look at it. So she was attracted to that, and she never got remarried. But there was things about it that would have been attractive. We have to think about the Vietnam War, certain things that would have been going on in that person's life. I think it's wise to go back and think about what type of wars, what type of world chaos was going on during times where our family members and friends came into the organization that were not born into it. When they started that situation, what was really going on at that time? So what attracted my auntie in the 70s and my grandmother and my great grandma? What was going on in the 60s? What world events were going on at that time? Since nobody was a JW, well, since nobody was a friend of theirs, there was a JW that I'm aware of. And that gives you a mindset of that person. So at this particular time, it was understood that everybody had the truth, and that that was the right religion to go into. So I think about stuff like that. So let's entertain another comment that I see. Hey Isaac, you're standing on God's word. That's the right stand on business. Thrifty says, hello, what's going on? I'm chilling. Get better, G. I don't know what you mean by that. I'm chilling, get better, G. Um, so let's see. MJ, what's up, man? Amy, hello from Brazil. Hello to you as well. So, okay. So you responded to MJ. So is there anyone on here that has had some difficulty with family members regarding them mistreating you, and you perhaps feeling like you regret standing up for the truth, the real truth, or do you feel like you would rather just keep things copacetic and just fake it, just to not have your peace disturbed, which your peace is going to be disturbed no matter what, because it's not possible to feel undisturbed when you're not being authentic. So is there anyone on there here that believes that you should just fake it and just take what life gives you? Or what is truth, that some would say, what is truth? So how many feel like you should just fake it and just let people just basically tell you how to live and you never voice your opinion? Chillin says, when you keep things to yourself, they still shun you. Yes, because you have to. I remember I had just missed 2 weeks of meetings, and people was already acting like I was Satan, and the same people that I was overworking things for regarding overworking with the carts, and it's just amazing. But I have this side of myself that can be militant, where I'm saying let's just do it. But then I have this side of myself where I want to be soft and understanding, but it gets frustrating when people aren't being soft and understanding toward you. It's like when you're dealing with these narcissistic personalities that are pretty much telling you how it's going to be, and if you don't do it, then we're not going to talk. And what's so crazy, it's like, what am I coming back to? So you didn't check on me. You don't care about my feelings. You don't care about my perspective. So what am I coming back to? So please explain that. So what am I coming back to? Just so, and that is something for people to think about. Like, it's almost like, do you love yourself if you're willing to live your entire life as a lie, knowing that it's a lie? Just like if a woman leaves you because you don't have money anymore, then comes back and you get the money, you know right then she only wants you for the money. So are you willing to accept it because, oh, she's so beautiful? Or it doesn't matter. Like, do you really love yourself when you are willing to accept anything? And that's where that side comes out of me. I was like, no, I'm not accepting this. I'm not going to just cower down and just give you what you want for the sake of you holding a title of a brother or a mom. Like, no, I want real love. And I'm challenging you to do better. I'm challenging you to look under the hood, because I have to look at myself in the mirror and say, well, you know what? I didn't even give them an opportunity to see how they will respond. And if they don't respond favorably, then that's their choice. It may not stay like that. So I don't objectively see how it's possible to think that you love somebody and you never tell them the truth. The universe is built on truth. Everything, love is built on truth. If you never tell them the truth, what to say, the truth hurts. Well, give that person an opportunity to understand that. Give that person an opportunity to feel that. And that's where the difficulty comes in. So let's see, someone said, in my situation, I can't fake it because one compromise leads to another and another, and I lose myself. And that's coming from Thrifty Treasure. Did you and your wife wake up together? So I don't discuss her. But yeah, so, but yeah, she still attends. I'll say that much. Um, there's no real love there, just control from Helen. You know, when you think control, because it's difficult. It's difficult when you're dealing with people, for the majority that you know are genuine. Um, when you know that their heart is in the right place, but they just been infected with mold like thinking. And when you look at a loaf of bread as an example that's molded, nobody would try to just peel the mold off the parts and then say, well, I peeled the mold off, now I can eat the other part. No, you're gonna throw the whole thing away. So that is what people are thinking. Well, you know what? I can fake it. It's molded, but I can fake it. Not realizing that you're still ingesting some dangerous stuff by just being there. You're losing time that you can never get back. You are not being your true self. You are running the risk of indoctrinating kids. You're running the risk of keeping other people heavily indoctrinated. And also, if you truly believe in what the Bible says, you are running the risk of sacrificing even your eternal salvation. I see no evidence, and I've looked carefully. I see no evidence on when you know something is true, when you know that God is going to give someone a pass. I see no scriptures that will confirm that. So with that alone, if one believes that way, now you have an even more important thing to do, because now you're thinking about your judgment if you believe that way. And I was thinking about this regarding the JW baptism. When I did a video on that, basically should you get baptized or rebaptized? I think, and this is going to be a rhetorical thing that I'm opposed to everyone. When I when I thought about it carefully, I looked at all the scriptures. No, you don't. Salvation, baptism is not for salvation. You don't need that, but it's a good thing to do, and it does symbolize a variety of things. But I asked myself, if the JW religion or Watchtower religion is objectively and extremely inaccurate and wrong, then how could the baptism possibly be valid? If the whole premise of it is a lie, I asked myself, how could the baptism possibly be valid? If you do the research, you know it's a lie. So that's just something that crossed my mind. And I had to really wrestle with that within myself. I'm saying, well, it's not true. I know I have the facts. So how could my baptism possibly been valid? So that was just something that crossed my mind. Let's read a few more comments. My mother and father tell me they love me all the time when I'm chilling, but they never take the time to hear me out. How is that love? Um, yeah, but we can't read hearts. It is love, that person's version of love. So as an example, my dad was never in my life, and I would have to reach out to him. I remember, like, when before my wife and I got married, I hadn't seen my dad in like 10 years. 'Cause I can count. So I saw my dad when I was 7, then I saw him again at 11, then I saw him again when I was 21, and then I saw him again when I was like 26, when right before I got like a year or so before I got married. So, and I can count on the times I would see him because it was important to me. And so he just never reached out to me. So I had to hunt him down. And I just remember when I would see him, like, okay, so you know you have a son. You haven't done anything for your son. Your son has the same number. You don't reach out. I have to reach out to you. But when I get around him, or the last time I got around him, I could tell that he missed me. But also, I think, my dad was definitely on drugs and things. But I'm wondering, like, okay, are you just incapable of loving because your mind is gone? And it's like you can feel the energy of the person loves you, but they don't show it. Now, for his reason, I don't know if he's embarrassed because he was never a father, and I wasn't trying to hold him accountable for it. I wanted to forgive him and move forward. But then I look at that same situation with indoctrinated people of any type of belief system. Is it the belief that's making them not love you, or is it just their personality? And sometimes that's difficult to understand. And also, people have different versions of love. Whatever you believe will be manifested through your actions. So somebody may truly think that they're loving you by shunning you. You can't exceed your belief system, but objectively speaking, it's just not true. So how do you get someone to see something that they're unwilling to look at? You can't. That's why you just have to keep living your life as an individual and live productively and just love them as best you can. Don't return evil to them, although they're returning evil to you. And it can be very difficult. Honestly, I recommend even shunning them. And when I say shunning them, I know that word is triggering, but if it's to a point where it's impacting your mental health and your spirituality and your happiness, their very presence for example, whenever you talk to them, all they're talking about is the religion, and you don't mind talking about the religion. It's just that you can't express yourself. So they can invite you to the meetings, they can tell you about this or that, but they have no interest in learning about what you think about life. That is the difficult part. So you're just simply saying in that situation, hey, I don't mind you talking about the Bible, but if you're going to talk about the Bible, I want to share how I feel about the Bible in general, other religions, or even the organization. If we're not going to do that, how about this? Let's just not talk about religion at all. And we can still be friends if that makes sense to you. But what I'm not going to do is let you control. How do you not see that's narcissistic? How do you not see there's no personal interest where you're going to tell me only going to talk about this? Other than that, I don't want to talk to you. Well, fine then, let's not talk. So sometimes it is healthy to actually remove yourself from them. And I say that from experience where it's triggering, where I have never said anything to my family members about the religion. I've never tried to show them anything. They still wondering why I left. Some have watched my videos. I let that speak for itself. I don't send them nothing. What I know about narcissistic personalities, and what we all know about it, when you don't tell them something, they just have to know. They're going to eventually watch your video. Trust me. They're going to, when you don't tell them why you leave, this is the beauty of leaving in silence. They just got to know, especially when they don't see you fitting a narrative of you're on drugs now. They don't see none of that. They don't know why you left. That's why I truly, highly recommend leaving in silence. Just let them see you, especially if they respected you. Now, if you, and again, I don't really care about any of this, but if you were never considered a spiritual person by them, if you leave, they probably won't notice. But if you were, so I would recommend even becoming more spiritual, not that you're actually being spiritual from that JW perspective and then leave. Yes, that's kind of fake, but when they see you leave and they say this person was doing this, this, and that, and you just leave and they don't know why, you say nothing, that's going to drive people crazy, guaranteed. They want to know, they have to know. So that in itself gets them thinking, because they don't have a narrative. They can't say that you're an apostate, you didn't say anything, you just left. They can't say that you did anything wrong, you just left. They don't know. They don't know if it's because of beliefs. You just say, I don't want to talk about it. Or I will talk about it in 6 months to a year. And during that time frame, they're wondering. Then this is the perfect opportunity for them to just find out you have a YouTube video or write a book or whatever it might be. And they're going to keep asking at some point. And then what I've noticed with this is the person is thinking somehow they're going to send me an article. They're going to try to do some demonic stuff. You don't do none of that. So now they're watching videos of alleged apostates trying to come to you, and they still don't know why their son left. They still don't know why their daughter left. They have no clue. So at some point, they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, how you doing? You want to come back to the Kingdom Hall or whatever and stuff like that. And then that's where you say, you know, I'm good. And eventually they're going to say, well, why did you leave? And that's why I really do. If you see wisdom in what I'm saying, if you can manage it, you're that's probably based on your circumstances. If you can leave in silence, no matter if you're in a relationship or whatever it might be, if you just stop pretending and say, I don't want to talk about that right now, I'm going through something, and you just don't come back, the person will come. I guarantee you, they're going to come to you. They're going to want to know why, you know, and if you see wisdom in that. So let me see what someone else has said. I just got baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, and in the Spirit, September 14th. It's a public confession of God and an organization. Congratulations. Good for you, Helen. I'm very, very proud of you. Lewis, I'm Shillington. Oh, you responding to MJ. They won't even bother me. LOL, they won't even bother to ask me those questions, I believe, out of fear. So that's definitely the case, because people make things complicated. It's very simple. When you have the light or the truth, you stand up for it. But when you're in darkness, you run. So look at who's running and look at who's standing their ground. Look at who's doing it publicly and look at who's running. Jesus did everything openly. He didn't run, he didn't hide. The enemy hides. And if we take it a step further, this is why I like talking to agnostics and atheists, all of that. You know, I can talk to anybody. So I've been studying a lot of different religions and just getting a better understanding of various things. And this is not with you, I'm Sheila. I'm talking to somebody else that I had a discussion with a few days ago. And we went down this rabbit hole. And every time I have a discussion with an agnostic or an atheist, it actually strengthens my faith in the Bible. And I like to look at all of people's issues. And some of them I have a response right away. And sometimes it takes me 6 months to have a response. But I want people to understand is when we talk about facts and factors, I am not trying to get somebody to believe in God because I believe in God or believe in the Bible. There's nothing from what I've seen that's going to make me stop believing in God's word. I don't need nobody that you believe what you believe. And I care about your beliefs, but I'm standing on business because I have not seen anything. I will look. Every time I look at someone's argument, toss it and turn it, put it upside down, and then I really take time to study it carefully. I always cover things that people have missed. And yes, I discover stuff that Christians have missed. Nobody knows everything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm simply saying to people, and I can't wait till I get to the point where I'm talking to atheists live, but I take a year to study their opposing arguments first. And I will never, ever stand to have a discussion if I know for a certainty, 100% fact, that is I'm wrong. I'll just concede, hey, you're right. The issue is the perspective that people don't realize. I like because see, agnostics have some really great points, and people are judging them often, not realizing that they're searching for truth, and we should answer their questions or say we can't answer questions. But here's this thing about faith. Everybody has faith in something. If you're in a relationship, you have no idea if that person is going to stay with you. You have faith that they're going to stay with you. You have no idea you're going to wake up tomorrow. You have no idea where you're going to be 10 years from now. I can go down a list. I can give everybody 100 things that they have faith in. So when people put the Bible under that type of scrutiny, which is fine, but put everything that you believe under that type of scrutiny. Put science under that type of scrutiny. Science changes left and right. When people talk about prophecies as an example, and it says some stuff was written after the fact, I ask somebody to give me one example of that. And then you think about biographies as an example. People are reading biographies and trusting in stuff that was written after the fact. A lot of biographies that people quote and reference that they love is written after the fact. Why don't people challenge? They say, hey, this was written 100 years after this person. Well, maybe something here is false. The same principle would apply to the Bible. You see the difference when someone would do that? So I can give them a bunch of books that they have read, scientific books or biographies that they do not question, that was written after the fact. Likewise with the Bible. Misunderstanding, just because something is written after the fact does not mean that it's not true. As an example, Moses writing about his own death. He said, well, see, how could Moses written about his own? What's the big deal with that? When you think about it and you read carefully, did not Jesus speak about his own death after the fact in many ways? God could have easily had Moses inspired to write about his own death while he was still alive. That doesn't mean that he actually wrote about his death after the fact. See, this is something that can't be proven either way. So I'm just simply saying, you take one person, hey, you can't prove that he wrote that literally after his death. The other person, you can't prove that he was inspired to write that while he was still alive about his death, that God would want him. God is all knowing, right? He foretells the beginning and the end. So the question is, at that particular point, they both are factors. Why reject one? We have to keep both of them on the table because they both could be a possibility. So just another example, just in general, I'm just speaking on something randomly right now, is factors and facts. Like as an example, I used to talk to this guy. This was a few years back, and I used to train his wife, and he had never really talked to a black man before. And I'm not one that uses the race, but I have to give you the context. So basically, I trained his wife. His wife would always talk about me. So he came to the gym one day. I got to meet you. My wife is always talking about you. I was writing my first book at that time. And here we are. We're like the same age. And he instantly is talking down to me. Now, just for context, he's Caucasian. I'm black. Now, he's talking down to me. He said, well, who helped you write your book? This is a true story. I said, man, so now normally I let people have it with stuff like that, but I will never pick winning somebody over to Christ. I would never pick my emotions over winning somebody to Christ. What was more important to me that this person is lost. I could see it in his eyes. The only reason he was feeling the way he felt, he had never had any diversity. So for the sake of helping him to be helped in a good way, I said, okay, I'm gonna take this because I felt it. So here he's using words. He said, "You know what that means?" So I'm like, wow. So we're talking. I was like, why not just use a word? Why would you assume that I don't know what that word means because you think it's a big word? So anyway, we ended up becoming friends. So basically, he wanted to talk to me about black on black crime, and this was back in like 2018. And I said, so this man comes out of nowhere and he just wants to meet me all of a sudden and just is fascinated by talking to me about that. I guess because his wife was talking about me all the time. And at this particular time, he's an engineer, so his brain was very logical. Now, it only took him about 2 months before he stopped talking down to me. So, so eventually I started studying the Bible with him. So basically, then COVID hit, he wanted to study the Bible because he lost his job. So now, like a year later, he respects me. Now he's asking me questions and seeking wisdom. So here's what happened. He would give me facts, and I'm making a point. He would say, well, because I told him, I said, look, man, I didn't see people die. I didn't see people sell drugs right in front of me. I've seen it all where I grew up. And I said, I want you to understand, like, look, nobody raised me. My mom never got me up from school. Nobody studied with me. I didn't have no tutors. I had to go to the schools that were in my neighborhood. It's just like that. See, so you keep saying that race isn't an issue, but you do realize that you went to private school. Both of your parents were educated. I didn't have my father in my life. My mom was mentally ill. And I want you to understand, I was in classroom where the teachers were freestyling. When I was in 11th grade, the teacher didn't teach us nothing. He was in there freestyling with the students. This is truth. And so I'm saying that you speak things you don't understand. So okay, you're giving me the facts about black people, but you do realize you don't know. So give me the facts on other groups. So for example, you say 50% of this. Okay, let's look at that per capita. So you're saying 50%. Now you do realize that there's only a certain percentage of a certain race in America, as an example. So when you say 50% that this black on black crime, as an example, what you have to look at is that's just one category. So what's that crime rate for the overall races in that same community? So now it's no longer 50% once you look at the facts, the factors around the facts. So now it drops down to like 15%, because you have to look at white on white crime, Chinese on Chinese crime, and then put all those crimes collectively, and then it's going to change the percentage. So what you did, you took a percentage to fit your narrative. And that's what we used to talk about. So I'm saying I find it interesting that you don't know all these other statistics. And then not only that, when you think about things like peonage, you do realize that after a certain period, when people were free from slavery on the Emancipation Proclamation, that people couldn't get jobs. So they put peonage, in which was another form of slavery, so that people could work. So basically, they went back to jail just to work. So I'm simply saying, if there's 120 facts, if you only talk about 3, you're not being objective. So now you have a motive, and that's not honest. You may not even realize you're being dishonest, but don't come to me or anybody trying to talk about facts when you didn't consider the factors around the facts, people's belief systems, their mindset. Why did they do that? All of those are facts. So when somebody is so focused on numbers, but they don't look at how we got the numbers, this person is inherently not being objective. They only want to prove a point, but they're using logical fallacies without realizing it. So I said to say this: when you're dealing with JWs, when you're talking about control, when you're talking about love, we all are looking at facts that's in this pot, like a recipe. We're looking at all these different facts. This person is pulling 2 or 3 facts out and fitting their narrative, or whatever it may be. The other person is doing the same thing. It's like, no, we can't do that. If we're truly going to be 100% objective, we have to take time to look at every last one. We have to care about people's belief to see what that came from, because that controls how they process information, and how they're processing information is a factor of the facts. So you can misuse numbers, you can misuse scriptures, you can misuse your own thinking without realizing it. And this is why I find it very helpful to before we even get into discussing what we think are facts, to sit down and let the person love them. Sit down and let the person know, hey, I care about how you feel. And then this guy I'm telling you about, we became friends. I never called him a racist, although I thought that he had some, some views that he didn't see. But I was the first Black person he ever talked to. And only because I was convicted by the Holy Spirit that I let him talk down to me. He didn't realize he was talking down to me. He didn't see it as a problem, and then later on, like I was able to help him to see that was far worth it. To me, I would do that again and again and again to see somebody. This is why my favorite quote is, look at a man the way that he is, you only make him worse. But look at a man the way that he can be, and he'll become the way that he should be. I wasn't looking at where he was right now. I knew that he even told me that, hey, some of his family was racist. So I don't care about any of that. I care about where we're going. That doesn't bother me. So with your family members, the same way. When you look at where they currently are, when you truly believe that people can change, it has power to it. So although they're calling you apostate, you're from the devil, you're this or that, you're evil, but you know that they're the ones that actually has an evil heart. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. They're spewing hate toward you. They don't even realize that what the scriptures are saying. You're giving them love and trying to help them. They're telling you, you're going to die. You're going to do this or that. So that's what's in their heart. So it is a part of their personality. But the beautiful thing about personalities is that it can change. I know Maya Angelou has this quote, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. But when you think about that quote, if you're a Christian or any person that's believing in the Quran or any of these spiritual books, then if that's the case, if people can't change, then what's the point for Jesus dying for everybody? What's the point of any of this? People can change. Now, I like that quote. I think it has some relativity to it, but to take it literally, then you will never give anybody a chance, because the quote does not coincide with what God's word says. God's word says people can change. So I'm going to go with godly wisdom over any type of man-made wisdom. So I simply said it to say this. There's a lot of stuff and axioms that we live on that aren't helping people to change. When I work with people with disabilities, when people have never made changes because their parents didn't believe in them, I treat them like human beings. And I've seen it change again and again and again. So with our relatives, this is why it's so important to focus on the more important thing, which is winning them over. But sometimes we have to take that abuse, unfortunately. It doesn't make you a coward. It doesn't make you a punk. It just simply means that you love them. You're willing to go into battle and take being misunderstood in order to win them over. And when you get that reward, if you get it, it's no guarantees, but it is worth it. And that's what I wanted to say about that. So let me see a few more comments on this subject. I've been leaning back into Christianity very slowly. Lewis, and I'm chilling. I know he wants to know why. I'm here for this topic, Isaac. I had a good look at me. I had a guy look at me puzzled. Oh, you didn't go to the college on a sports scholarship? A full ride academic scholar. I love it. I love it. And see, I I remember, for one thing, I'm gonna always be myself. Most people don't know, like when I first started coming to meetings, I used to sag my pants. I used to use profanity. I stopped cussing when I was 16. Uh, and I was, so I would say the organization was definitely helpful for me as a young man. Not I could have gotten it anywhere now. I could have went to any church or whatever. But for me, where I grew up, and I don't want you to think of Black people. Just think of any destructive environment. So when I think of ghetto, I don't think of Black people. I think of area that's not good. Not good. That can be a Chinese ghetto or Asian ghetto or whatever. I don't think like that. I just see people as people, and I don't use the race card, but we have to discuss those things. But at that time, for me, I remember the first time I had not even been out of the city of Baton Rouge at that point. Like the first time I had ever uh, gone out of the state was when we were going to the assemblies and the conventions. So I was excited because oh, I get to go to Mississippi. Like we didn't go anywhere. We did nothing. So that was exciting to me. And we were playing basketball. I had the elders were being father figures, so you can kind of see what was attractive about the religion. And I've always loved God. Always had a love for God. I never, I knew at 11 years old, if you read in my book, the reason why I started exercise, I knew at 11 years old that nobody was coming to save Isaac Miller. Uh, when I found out what food stamps were, and I don't look down on anybody. When I understood that there was a government assisted program, I'm not saying that people don't need assistance. That's not what I'm saying. Me, you can ask my mom. I refused to use a food stamp card when I was 11 years old. She said I was going to whip you. I said you got to whip me because I was upset. Then I found out we was on Section 8, and the only reason I knew what that was because my grandma kept saying that my mom needed to leave my stepdad at that time because he wasn't working. And she was like, you don't even own this house. I thought we owned the house. When I understood that at 11, I said, wait, this is not for us. Food stamp is a handout. I said, I don't want to use that. And every time we would go to the grocery store, she would pull out that card. I said, I'm not doing it. Now I will eat the food. But I didn't use the card. And I said, you're going to have to whip me. I will not use this food stamp card, not because I think I'm better, because I want to work for what I got to get. And I was doing it at 11 years old. So when they knocked on my door when I was 11, I think this happened right after that. I wanted to come to know God better because I wanted to get out of the hood. And again, don't think about a race. Just think about not the best environment because that's how I look at it. Trust me, there's hoods everywhere. And I knew nobody was coming for me. So that was some of that. And I like the principles. So I like what I was learning, what I stood for. Because I did think about selling drugs because the schools I was going to, so basically they would tease you. If you didn't have the right shoes on, like the kids, they were like, it was a thing. You didn't have the right shoes on, they would tease you. And I used to have to wear the same shoes over and over again. I didn't get a professional haircut. I would get teased for my haircut. So you see why I didn't like that situation. I remember my mom she had several bullet holes in her car when she drove to pick me up when I was in elementary school. I remember the teacher looking at that and all the seats were cut up. This is what I grew up seeing. I remember, and then my brother, when he was alive, because he was his fellowship, he used to take me around because my grandma didn't really live in the best area either. He would take me around in the neighborhood to fight some kids. They call it slap boxing. I don't know. That's basically you to slap. And it was good because that kind of stuff teaches character. It taught me not to be fearful of people. So my brother was older than me, so he would make me go around and fight the other little kids. And I was like 7, 8, 9, or 10 at that particular time. So I was never scared to fight for anybody, to fight somebody. Now, when I became a Jehovah's Witness, I realized because I was heavily into martial arts, so I let all that go because I wanted to do the right thing, and I didn't really do anything bad. I wasn't scared of nobody. I'm still not scared of anybody. So I tell people straight up true. I don't care if you're 7 feet, 8 feet tall, 9 feet. It's not about winning or losing. You ain't gonna punk me. We're not gonna do that. But if I sense that I could help you, just like I did with that guy that was being racist toward me, that was way more important to me. So I will swallow my feelings and my pride because what's more is important to me is you coming to Christ or just evolving your mind to realize that, hey, you've been indoctrinated. You think that a certain race of people are beneath you, but they're not. You need to break free from that. It's not just JW awakening. It's not just religious awakening. It's more than it. It's beliefs as a whole that are dangerous for people. And we do that through diversity. We do that by giving people the freedom of speech. and I don't let any of those words bother me. When people say certain things, they can call me whatever they want to call me. That has no power to me. I know who I am, and I know what I'm not. And we have to realize all of us gonna die one day in this current life. So I just really and standing up for the right thing. So I just took a step back to reflect on certain things that they definitely helped me with. When I think about morality, there was a time in my life where I saved myself for marriage. Most people find it hard to believe, but I did, and that was very difficult. Especially when I was in college. Trust me, it was not. There were several women that were trying to talk to me. No bragging, just telling the truth. So I realized I also would have did that regardless if I was a JW, because I wanted to follow the Bible. Once I saw what the Bible said and it was beneficial to me, I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to do the right thing. So with that being said, um, there are people that are in a religion for a variety of purposes, for whatever it might be. But most people don't realize they're in a religion for what they think to be true versus what's actually true. And also, what I realize when you're engaging with people, especially when you engage in a debate, I don't engage in debates to win. I engage in debates to help. And this is why I'm always interested. Why do you believe that way? Tell me, let's get to the roots of it, the foundational thing, because sometimes there's logical fallacies intertwined into the foundational beliefs without realizing it. And then it forms a paradigm that is on autopilot at that particular point. And we don't realize that we have an unconscious light bulb memory that's pulling information that supports a belief that was never confirmed, but it sounded good to us. Something so simple as, well, if I was God, I wouldn't do this. So that can't be the truth because God didn't show love right here. No, no, no. That's how you perceive it. That's how you perceive those things. And vice versa, even on my end. So it's a beautiful thing when you take a step back and you realize that they're only I find that people, I always call it water points. I find that people are debating on how much water you need. That's debatable. But what's not debatable is needing water. So we often flip flop those things where we're debating on what's not debatable versus what's actually debatable. Just like I was talking to a guy a few days ago, and I gave him a response to something, and he was saying it don't make any sense. I said, just because you said it don't make any sense doesn't mean it don't make any sense. But what you're saying makes sense because I'm interested, but that doesn't mean that it makes objective sense. And I sometimes there's certain things I won't even do publicly because I'm more concerned about winning the person over, because a man offended is harder to win over. So if I know one thing I would never do, I would never have a debate with somebody openly if I know that they're wrong. Because I know that this is going to be embarrassing. So I'd rather do that privately. I don't want to do that openly, because at the end of the day, what if the person realizes that they're wrong? Now they're so focused on trying to defend themselves, they don't humble themselves and they get more off into their mindset. I'd rather do that privately so they're not embarrassed about it. And vice versa. Now, me personally, I don't care about being embarrassed. Man, you were right. So, but me personally, when I know that is the case, and I know the person has overlooked something, I would say, hey, I would like to talk to you privately. Now, if we're having a discussion openly about something, and I'm not trying to win anything, we're just trying to, I think what is obvious will be proven who's right or wrong without me trying to make them look dumb, or vice versa. Nobody knows everything. We all can learn from each other. And that is just the beauty. So when I think about dealing with shunning, when I think about dealing with the tragedies of talking to your relatives when they're coming to you knowing everything, and they may even use their age against you or whatever it might be. They may try to question your motives, all of this when they're not listening to you. And then you ask yourself, well, I love this person, but do I really know them? The version of them that I like, is it the version of them that I love? See, sometimes we like a version of people, but the real person we don't actually love. Meaning, do you really, truly, truly love to be shunned? Do you really, truly love somebody that tells you you're going to, die if you don't become and believe the way that they believe? Do you really love being blocked? Do you really, that's that person doing that? Now, is it their personality? Of course, it's their personality. But also, is it fear? Of course, it's fear. Is it indoctrination? Of course, it's indoctrination. But when you take a step back and you look at it objectively, what did we really love? Did we really like certain things, but did we really love that? I can tell you right now, I don't feel no type of love from being shunned. I don't love that. I don't love that I'm treated like a business transaction. I don't love that my mom can just say, "Hey, come back to God," and all this. Cause I never left God, but this way she feel. Cause just come on back in. But if I try to say anything to her opposite, then the conversation would be shut down. So no, I don't love that. But I am comfortable being solo. I am comfortable with restarting, and I am comfortable knowing that a lot of people don't realize only thing they're looking forward to is 6 feet under in the casket. Unfortunately, it is. But the reality is, it's better to accept truth and mold your mind around it than to have a fantasy. And sometimes people say, well, Isaac, you guilty of having fantasy. That's fine. That's fine. Tell me that. It doesn't bother me. Because I have my personal testimony, that I've seen what God has done to me. It's not this thing where you created. No, no. Let me tell you something. If I share with you, if I were to go back to when I was a child, anybody on here that's an atheist or whatever, you would be a believer in God. But I don't do that just yet. I have some stories for you. God has always looked after me. That's why Jesus said, you keep searching the scripture. He said that God is bigger than the Bible. All of that. Whatever you think the Bible is convoluted, you think it's been man-made, whatever you're thinking about, that's fine. I'm just simply telling you that you can experience those same benefits if you just allow it to happen and understand that you cannot exceed your beliefs. You think there is no God, you won't see evidence for it. You think that the Bible is fully man-made, you won't see the evidence how it's not, because you said that you went into it, you violated a scientific principle in itself. When you're doing a scientific method, you have your control group and your experimental group. You form your hypothesis. You don't put any feelings into it. You do peer reviews. And what I consistently find is that it never fails. I'll probably talk to maybe 25, 30 atheists or agnostics, and I love talking to them. I really do. Good people. And they teach me a lot. But what seems to be the overwhelming thing is when I watch 20, 30 videos or read 2, 3 books that they want me to read, I notice that the same level of objectivity has not been done. For example, if you send me 10 books, I'm gonna read them. I want you to read the 10 books that I got. If you send me 40 videos, I want you to read see the 40 videos that I got. You can't use the JW experience. That was not a good an example of learning about God fully. So it's let all of us be objective all the way around, and just understand that I'm gonna give you one experience. So okay, 2022, and people say this can be a coincidence, but I'm just gonna tell you the story. Now, this is just one of many. So this is maybe a few months before I woke up. So anyway, I'm running in my neighborhood, and there's like 30 miles of trails in my neighborhood. So anyway, I'm running. I think I was doing maybe like a 10-mile jog. And I noticed that this bird is behind me. So I noticed that the bird keeps stopping when I stop. Like literally, I stop, the bird stops. I stop, the bird stops. I stop, the bird stops. So I'm like, what the world? So like, and it's a dove. So anyway, I come back the next day, that same bird comes back. It follows me, stop, it gets right next to me on the sidewalk. Third day, same thing again. This time, the bird follows me all the way to my house, several miles. I go inside. I have a video of it, and the bird comes right to the front door and just stays right there and is flying. I guess stationary in the air, and I was like, "What the world?" So then the bird just leaves. Now, not long after that, I get a random call from a young lady that had stopped attending the meetings. She said I was the only person that she thought was intelligent enough to talk to her. Now, that's her words or whatever. She knew everything about the religion, and she remembered certain things that I would tell her when she was younger. And she had an agenda, and most people may remember that. So basically, during that same time frame, I had started crying in the kitchen because I just felt empty. I was like, I'm just living, and I just don't feel this real connection to people. I feel like this is just feels fake, so much stuff. And then around the same time, she brings up a subject I had put in the back of my mind that I had an issue with because I used to read all the books when I was studying. I read the Reasoning book, I read the Greatest Man book, the Search for. I was trying to read all the books when I was a teenager, and there was a few things I was reading. Now this is before I got baptized. I was trying to understand 1914, and I never could make full sense of it because I was looking at the numbers. I was looking at the dates, the formula. I always pay attention to how they put a formula together, because you put the formula together wrong, the answer inherently would be wrong. And she brought up a question that was not my question, but I said, you know what? I kind of always had some issues with 1914 myself with the Gentile times. So I decided to look at it again. And that's when I discovered a false prophecy. And that's when I read Deuteronomy. I woke up immediately, just like that. And the reason why this event was significant is, if you were to go back and read about certain animals in the Bible and read about birds and just certain things, and to see certain connections, it was not a coincidence. And then after that, immediately when I woke up, I had this overwhelming urge that I had to speak up. Like, I did not want to do this. And it was like, you gonna do this. So then, not only after that, when I tell you all, I could not walk for like a month. My knee was jacked up. I could barely walk. I was limping. I had this overwhelming urge to go run in my neighborhood. My wife said, are you crazy? You can barely walk. I said, I gotta go run. I started running. I ran for an hour and a half. And 5 minutes into that run, I felt my knee healing. I started running the faster. This is not a made up story. I'm telling you the truth. I'm saying, who in their right mind? And this is not, there was another one. I'm in the restroom, and I had never seen this guy before. And it was an old man. He walks in the restroom, and never seen him before. And he says, "Do you need healing?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, I can heal you, and I can give you healing powers." And I was like, so you can keep that to yourself. So anyway, he starts telling me about demons. He said they got some demons. They got like a demons in the Euphrates River, and he said that a third of the world will die soon. I was like, man, this guy is kind of crazy. So anyway, he's insistent about trying. He said, I need to pray for you and give you some healing powers. And I knew what the Bible said in Corinthians. You can't pray for healing powers. That's just a free gift God gives you. So he had this crazy look in his eye, and he kept trying to pray for me. I said, no, I'm good. So anyway, he walks off, and he goes toward the shower. And he said, I know if I see you again, that is meant for me to give you my healing power. And I noticed that he didn't have nobody's gym bag. He never had come to the gym before. I'm saying he's walking toward the shower, nothing in his hand. I never saw this guy again. And the reason when I left that that experience, I'm not going to share the full story on that, but that was an element to that was very demonic. And it was like this person was trying to pray for me, and by doing that, I know for a fact that would have been negative. They were very insistent, very, very insistent, and never saw this person again at all. And I'm gonna show you one more. Now I got plenty, but I went to a restroom and I walked in. They had these two guys in there, and I can tell they were up to no good. So anyway, I usually always pay attention to my surroundings or whatever. So I'm walking in there, and they were just standing in the restroom. But so I looked through. I felt them walk up, and then they just stopped. So I turned around, and they both were just still. Literally, I turn around, and they're just still. And I walk out, and I told my wife about it. I said, I think those two guys were trying to do something to me, but I turned around and they were just still. They just stopped. And I can't explain that. They were moving, they were waiting, they were in the restroom. They weren't out using, they were just standing. The restroom was clear. They were just standing there. And as I'm using the stall, I feel them walk up and they just stop. And I turn around and they're just still. This is a true. This may sound crazy to you, but I'm not making this up. So, and I've had several experiences like that. So I said it to say, I've seen God in my life. I said it to say, I've seen the benefits of following the Bible. I said it to say, God has changed my life. I said it to say, I've seen the science behind the Bible. I say that to say, I've seen so much stuff that it was not for God's word, I will not be the person I am today. Nobody can take my testimony away. Nobody can tell me what I have experienced. God has changed my life. And I just want to leave people with this message. If you give God the chance, no matter what you believe in or what you think has been done, the Bible is saying God will not allow you to see stuff if you don't believe. He will purposely let you not see it because you're not seeking. But if you would trust and just put this to the test and not go out and yes, use your mind, use your logic, use all of that. I am nobody special. I'm no better than you. Only thing I've done is I've questioned God, but I knew he would give me the answer. The only thing I've done, I've questioned God and I've waited and know that he will reveal certain things to me. The only thing I've done differently is I know that just like somebody built this watch, nobody would think this watch came together by itself, that God put together the human being with our circulatory systems, with our cardiovascular systems. When we think about all these different systems, our skeletal systems, our neurological systems, all these different systems, our peripheral system, I can keep going on and on and on, that they function together. When you think about ribosomes and a nucleus, and you can't create a nucleus. Who created that? When you think about the seed that we use to plant for apples, we know what to do with an apple seed, but we can't create the apple seed. When we look at, and of course, that'll be separate from belief in the Bible or whatever, but you don't even need the Bible to see the evidence for God. You don't even need that. That's what Jesus said. God is bigger than the Bible. You can't summarize an omniscient being with 1,100 chapters. The Bible has 1,100 chapters. And you think about the Ethiopian Bible, think about the Catholic Bible. If you have access to it, you can still read it. Let's not like real much when somebody didn't canonize something. They may canonize it later on. But I just really want everybody on here just test to see how good God is. Test to see how God can use Islam, Judaism, any of those things to show truth, even if something is man-made regarding how men decides to use a book or that book or this book. But you see certain things, and the Holy Spirit is true, is real. When I tell you, I was at an event, and there's a few times where I've been moved to tell people, hey, you're hiding something. I don't know what it is, but you need to come forward. And the person, what you talking about? I just know. I just feel, I don't know what it is. And then a few weeks later, the person says, hey, I did this. I've seen, how did I have that type of discernment? I'm not that sweet. Where did I get that from? To just have that discernment. And I say, hey, that, and it don't happen all the time, but there's times where I walk in a room and I say, hey, 2 months from now, you're going to feel something. Let's find out. And it happens. It don't happen all the time, but when I'm moved to do that, I just feel something. I can't explain it. I feel something. I'm moved to tell that person that. So I've seen God in my life. And I just say that again to you. People can say what they want, but the Bible has changed my life. God is good. I've seen his mercy in many ways, and I'm still discovering certain things. So I'm in this live tonight. Let me read a few of these comments before I fade out. Let's start with Lewis. Honestly, I'm still lost, but I cannot deny the power Christ's ministry can change a person. I truly want to become a better version of myself. Even with some of my doubts, I feel safe knowing there is. Absolutely. And I'm not one of those people. I'm not like this this person that is gung-ho on a lot of different things regarding just blind faith. I don't believe in blind faith. I believe in understanding people. And there's probably, and I don't mean to say this in like, I don't mean this in like in some type of esoteric way, some kind of arcane way. There's a lot of things I don't say to people on purpose. I probably only giving people maybe 20% of certain things, even when I'm having debates with them. Because what I realize, a man forced against his will is of the same opinion still. There's no type of facts. And I had this experience with training people. I could sit down and give people the scientific proof of working out and fitness. And I was the proof. I got the proof. And people still thought somehow that I can make protein be carbs. They still say, I should be able to eat what I want to eat. What I realized from that experience with the science, I've done the scientific approach on a lot of stuff. When somebody is set on believing what they want to believe, they think that they care about science. Some people don't. They really don't. I'm not saying it applies to people on here, but sometimes I have to understand that people can reach their own conclusions. There's nothing you're going to tell somebody. Often when you're trying to prove something, that may make the person push back more. When you do like this, you automatically have a pushback. So sometimes I truly believe in just guiding people to the right way of thinking. I truly do believe in letting people think that they have won certain things. Even if I know that's not the case, I don't care about that. I care about winning the person over. So some of the wisest things are never said in public. Some of the wisest things are kept secret. Because sometimes if you tell people, you mess it up. You can mess up. I talk about blind studies a lot, but there's certain features you can never tell people because you're going to mess it up. Because once they become conscious of that construct that you mentioned, they're going to change up their behavior. So sometimes you have to keep it blind in order to help them. I say that to say this: by simply having a conversation with someone in a different angle opens up a new way of thinking. And you have to trust that you're not greater than the universe. You're not greater than the creator. You're not greater than God. If God is truly guiding people, he will make it apparent for them to learn in that way. Or the person's own, because when somebody goes into a discussion thinking they already know everything, you're not getting through to them anyway. So that's why it's good to peel back the layers and try to really understand one another. Because if you move forward talking to somebody that's already convinced that you're inferior, they're already convinced that they know more than you, they're already convinced that you're trying to debate and you're trying to have a discussion. They're trying to debate, you're trying to have a discussion. They're projecting their motives onto you. Sometimes you just have to take time building the foundational things before you get into the nitty-gritty. As an example, there's no possible way the guy that I was mentioned that was being racist toward me would have received me well if I immediately shut him down, which I could have. I had to let him think he was superior. I had to let him think that I was this big old dummy in order to win him, because the spirit convicted me to do that, because I knew that once he realized that some of the stuff he was saying was a bunch of malarkey, that he would come around and have a better way of understanding, you know, and that's what it's all about. That is really, really what it's all about. Just helping people. There is a few people on here that were opposing and saying certain things when somebody is trying to bait you in to get on their level. uh Again, it's most important to me that a person is won over, not necessarily to Christ, but just a better way of thinking. There was a lady I used to train where she, objectively speaking, there's 168 hours in a week. She was convinced that she didn't have time. She was convinced. So I had her write out her schedule, and I didn't tell her what I was doing. I said, okay, how long does it take you to get dressed? How many hours you work? How much time you spend eating? All of that. And I had already done this. I knew that she was going to have about 50 on the count of 4 hours with sleep, everything. So, and all she had to do was work out 4 hours a week, out of 168 hours. So now people push back with facts sometimes. So you have to guide them. So now she still makes an excuse for it. Now I knew what comes after that. So the next thing is, hey, I'm not backing down on this. And then so I'm going to train with somebody else. Great. So what she did, and I knew that would help her, because once she left me, she wanted to prove me wrong. Great. Now you got in shape. She got in shape. Not she wanted to doubt me, but then she found the time. That's all I cared about, because I knew that's what it was going to take to help her. So sometimes the reverse psychology is when sometimes you have to do the opposite or play the dummy in order to get the person to do the right thing. And that's why we can't tell people everything. Because if I had told her that, it wouldn't have worked. But I knew that's what she was going to do, because she was angry. You gonna drop me? So I fired her. I see, this relationship isn't working out anymore. But I did that not because I wanted to be arrogant. I knew she would get in shape, and I've done that. I've done it to several people. After a few months, a year or two, they're not making progress, and they keep making excuses. My schedule didn't got it full. They get angry. What, you don't have time for me? Then they get in shape every single time. They got something to prove. It's kind of like if a woman was begging a man to take care of himself, and then their relationship ends. So now he takes care of himself because he wants to make other people more attracted to him. So now he actually starts taking care of himself. But he didn't do that while he was with the woman that wanted him to take care of himself, which is crazy. But that's sometimes our minds are just all warped and crazy. There's somebody on here, I'm chilling. He helped me to realize I was in error about something in Genesis a few days ago, maybe about like a week ago. And I'm happy because I was wrong. He was right. So I love being wrong. And that's and the reason why it's kind of like every time before I ever go public with something, it's like, for me, my personal experience, God usually allows me to be proven wrong privately. Not because I'm anybody so special, but how a lot of people work on here, if they just try to find anything you say that is inaccurate and pick you apart as though you're imperfect. You're going to misspeak sometimes. You're going to say things that's not right, not factual. That's not what's important. What's important is do you come back and correct it. So, and at the same time, I mean this with 100% certainty. Everything that you can think of, for the most part, with for photosynthesis, Noah's Ark, Moses dying, the gospel accounts being rearranged. all of that. I am telling you from my heart, I am telling you, you have overlooked some things. God is true. Let God's word be true and every man be proven a liar. I'm signing out. Take care. Have a good evening. It's been a blessing. Hopefully this live was good. I didn't mean to be on this long, but I got to talking, got to flowing, had to spit what I had to spit. Take care. Bye.